What's up, everybody? Deer Season Daily, October 10th. It is officially flannel season. At least I'm calling it as such. It's supposed to be warmer next week, so maybe not quite yet, but you can get away with it in the mornings for sure. I'm going to be talking about my first hunt of the year that I had yesterday evening. It was mostly uneventful. Did have one interesting encounter, if you'll call it that. And also some EHD stuff going on over in Indiana that's pretty interesting. And then a tip for what to do when you got a field full of deer in the evenings. But before we get into all that, don't forget Rack's Big Game Supplements is our partner for these episodes. Guys, it's what the professionals use. The outfitters, the deer farms, they use this stuff to grow really big deer, to help grow really big deer, to help grow healthy deer. And big deer are healthy deer. Healthy deer are big deer. So go check it out, racksmineral.com. You can find all that they have there, local dealers as well, if you want to get some stuff. There's some stuff that's exclusive to dealers, so make sure you check that out. There's some in Nebraska, Iowa, Missouri, Kansas, and we're adding more all the time, seems like. If you guys are watching on YouTube, subscribe, like, comment, all that kind of good stuff. If you're on Apple Podcasts or Spotify or somewhere else, just follow us. Leave us a review. That really helps. You can also go to Ridgehunteroutdoors.com. The podcast is on there. You can send us a message to the website if you ever got questions about anything. Or if you find anything you like on there, whether merchandise or scents or seed or anything else, you can use the discount code RHOPOD. That's all caps, no space, and you get 10% off of everything there. All right, got the business stuff taken care of. You guys know by now the first one, RHO update. So like I said, got my first hunt of the year in last night. Didn't see but one deer, and he was never closer than 150 yards probably. But it was an interesting one because this is a deer that I think is super old, like 6.5 plus. I wasn't sure at first. And it's actually a deer that I jumped back in August or September when I was putting up a camera. And he kind of got up out of the beans and took off. And he just looked like a spike at the time, like a really big spike. And there was a 3-year-old 8-pointer with him. But he came out tonight, and I did pull a card on another camera and found that I had one picture of him. But he's a super odd-looking buck. He comes almost straight up off of his head, almost goes backwards, actually, and splits like a fork horn, except there's also a point in the middle on each side. So he's like a 6-pointer, but he's kind of got a main beam and 2 points coming off of it, and they all, like one of them kind of goes forward, and the other point kind of goes back. And then he's kind of palmated on one side. But when he was looking directly at me, in my direction, he really reminded me of an 8-pointer that I filmed like 3 years ago now. That was either 3.5 or 4.5 at the time. And he came straight up off of his head, and he was super tight racked. It just really reminded me of that deer. And I got a picture of him somewhere, and I think it might be him. It was in that exact same spot, and he came out of the same woods that deer was staying in a lot of the time. And obviously same farm. So I really think it might have been that deer, which would put him at 6.5 or 7.5 years old. He's probably 16 inches tall with these really goofy rack that he had going on. So like December comes around, if I haven't killed anything yet, he's probably a buck that I'd put a tag on. But he never got close enough to even tempt me tonight, and I had no plans of shooting him because we've got some better deer on camera. Even up there's a decent buck that I would shoot. He's got some really short G4s. I don't know that. I think he'll be a 10-pointer. I think they'll make an inch. He might be like 2 or 3 inches. But anyway, he's a pretty nice deer. We had a really good deer show up on camera in another spot today, and I'm going to try him as soon as we get the right wind. Looks like these next few days we might get a good wind to go hunt him. So that's what I'm going to do. But that's all I got for the update this week. Still unsure when that video is going to come out. It'll just depend on when I can get stuff from Blake. And if anybody goes out this weekend, I think Dusty's going to make his first hunt maybe tomorrow for a really cool looking old big buck that he's had some pictures of real close to daylight. So he's got a decent chance, I think, tomorrow. So I'll keep you guys posted as we go along. Obviously, this will be the last one for the week. So all that stuff, you'll get the weekend information on Monday's episode. So again, make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss that. Talking shop, we're going to skip that right now because we have no changes. We have no changes from yesterday's episode, which takes us to what's new. I talked about this in the intro. Indiana's got some EHD stuff going on, southern Indiana right now. That's kind of interesting because usually you get these reports in August or September. Sometimes you won't get as many until guys start going out in the woods and setting stands and putting up cameras, which, usually end of August into September and then some in October. But they've had a lot of reported cases recently, so much, in fact, that the DNR over there is actually doing something about it, even this late in the game. Like, the season started, but they're already trying to mitigate what's going on there. They've got several hundred reports from residents of EHD right now. So it's not like for sure confirmed, but when you have that many reports, possible EHD, if 50% of them are right, then that's a substantial number. So this is from the Indy Stars article I found on this. The DNR reduced antlerless bag limits in 7 counties this hunting season. Jennings County had 301 suspected EHD cases reported to the DNR as of October 8th, 2025, and the bag limit there decreased from 4 antlerless deer to 2. Antlerless bag limits in Jackson, Jefferson, and Scott counties, which had 231, 91, and 71 EHD reports respectively, were lowered from 4 to 3, and Bartholomew, Martin, and Switzerland counties saw their limits drop from 3 to 2. The updated regulations are in effect for the 2025-2026 deer season. So they were talking in that article, too, about kind of the difficulty of changing this so late in the game and trying to relay information to all the hunters and stuff so they know what to expect. And I'd be interested to know, like, if somebody already had permits, if they end up killing one more than the bag limit, what happens with that? Because they are changing this so late in the game. But it's just something to keep in mind that EHD, when it hits, especially in places that haven't really been exposed to it before, it can wipe out a bunch of deer. Like that right there, we're talking 650, 600, over that, 680, almost 700 reports in those counties. So much so, obviously, that they're limiting permits. There's obviously, if you guys haven't heard, a lot of you have, a huge EHD problem in Ohio right now. They're talking thousands of deer killed, tens of thousands, I think was the last number I've seen. So they were talking about doing some of the similar stuff here. And essentially what the DNR said was, this is such a problem that if you combine that many deer dying from this disease with the regular hunting pressure and the regular permits being filled, then you can decimate the deer herd, and people like to have deer to see or to hunt or just to be out there and enjoy. So at least they're being proactive about it. That's kind of nice to see from a neighboring state. So that's what's new this week. If you guys have any information on that, or you're over there and you're listening to this, let us know. Leave a comment, send us an email, let us know what's going on, what you've seen. That takes us to weather and movement predictions. Looking at a high in the low 70s again today, low in the high 40s this morning. So very similar to the last few days. This is going to be like the last cooler day we'll have for a while based on the forecast, so take advantage of it. Going to be clouds most of the day. The pressure is going to stay high, but it's going to be dropping throughout the day. So it's supposed to start out like 30.3 and then end up at 30.1, which is still plenty high for the deer to be moving, but usually you like that rising instead of dropping. But it might get the deer up because it is a change and it is still pretty high. The winds are going to be out of the southwest now. They're supposed to be not a lot of wind still. Like this yesterday afternoon in the evening, the wind just absolutely died down to nothing. And it was pretty much thermals at that point, especially with that cooler air. It was really pulling the thermals down to the lower places in the evening. And I'd say it's going to be the same today. But sometimes this first south wind after several days of the north, so like we've had a few days in a row here where it's been east, northeast, north, northeast, north, and now we're getting into a south wind day. Sometimes those can be really good. A lot of times that's more so like in the late season, but you'll see it some in the early season too. And it works the other way as well, which is more obvious because after you've had several south winds and then you turn around and get that north, it's usually because a front's moving through. But nonetheless, that first day of like a change in the wind after it's been pretty steady out of one direction for a while can be pretty good. So today might be a good afternoon to go. Might be the last cool, decent afternoon for a little while. The foreseeable forecast anyway is supposed to be the coolest day we're going to have for a while. I would stick to those evening food sources. There's green food sources. Yesterday I was sitting over a bean field, standing beans, had some green left in it. That buck was picking through what was green out there in the bean field. So food plots as well, of course, and acorns. If you're still on acorns, could be a good evening to be on those again. A lot of those are getting picked through, though. We're starting to see more caps on the ground. Some of them that have been there for a while, like it dropped in September, are starting to rot. So they're slowly going to be transitioning away from those acorns and onto green food sources, or then when those beans dry down, onto the soybeans and natural browse. Like I said, this is going to be the last cooler day, so take advantage of that. We're about to hit the October lull, too, in the next few days. Whether you're a believer in that or not, like, I'll show you my cameras. There's a lot of people out there that will do the same. Yes, the studies show that deer move more and more every day throughout October. That might be true, but I believe most of that movement happens close to bedding and at night. It says, a lot of times you'll see those, they say they're to become more and more daytime active as it goes, but I think it's mostly around their bedding areas. They just don't quite move as far until we get those really cold days or the pre-rut kicks them up and gets them going. So we're about to hit that period where it's going to be very limited daytime movement, I think, especially from bucks, because it's going to be warmer, and it's just a period of time anyway where that seems to be the case. So we got that to not look forward to, I suppose. Doesn't mean you can't go out there and you can't have some success. Just keep in mind that we're about to hit some slow days. Don't get too discouraged. And if you haven't started hunting yet, then, it's not a bad time to go ahead and get some other stuff done and get ready for that, like, third week of October when it starts to get pretty good. That brings us to the tip of the day. And it is that deer don't spook as bad after dark. So especially here in early season when we're focusing on those food sources in the evening like I talked about, don't leave with deer in the field if it's still light out at all. Because you can seriously mess up a spot by clearing that field if they see you climb out of a tree or climb out of a blind with any light left at all. Always wait until it's dark before you do that. You can try to coyote call or owl hoot too, like to clear the field, but that doesn't always work. I remember specifically one time I had it wasn't a field full, but I had 4 or 5 deer out there. Coyote howled. I had a coyote howl on the other side of the woods back at me, and it didn't bother the deer at all. They looked up, their ears perked up, and then they went right back to feeding. Owl hooting again, kind of the same deal. It might work, it might not. You can also have someone come and clear the field with a vehicle. I used to do that quite a bit especially before I was driving. If someone had to come pick me up, I just have them come all the way back to the spot, clear the field out of the deer from that instead of them seeing you. That'll work pretty well, but a lot of us don't have that option. You don't have somebody to drive out there and clear it. So if the owl hoot or the coyote call doesn't work and you don't have the other option, wait until well after dark, like can't see anything dark, even full moon, you're going to be able to see a little bit, sure, but just wait till the sun's completely gone, the light's completely gone, get down out of the stand, climb down out of the blind, hit the ground, and just walk out. Don't waste time going and checking any cameras or piddling around with the deer or stopping and hoping they don't see you. Just get down and walk out. That's the best way to do it. I had deer in a food plot one time about 40 yards from my blind. They were actually at 20 when it got dark, and then they slowly started working off. And as it got really dark, I got all my stuff gathered up as quiet as possible, got out of the back of the blind with them still out there in the food plot, went all the way down the ladder, which got their attention when I was on the ladder. As soon as I hit the ground, they took off out of there. And I just turned and I walked straight to the truck. And it wasn't 15 minutes later, I had pictures of them right back on that food plot like nothing ever happened. If it is dark, you will not bother the deer nearly as bad as you will in the daylight. So if you're hunting those evening food sources, this goes throughout the season, even late season again, because we're going to come back and have these same strategies really when it comes to hunting those evening food sources. If you got deer in the field, don't do something dumb to scare them off. Don't leave before dark and spook them that way, because they might not come back for a while, if ever, in the daylight. Just wait till it gets dark, get down, and get out, and you're going to have a lot better success hunting those deer than the days to come and throughout the season. So that's all I got for this episode of Deer Season Daily. We'll see you guys on Monday for another one. Thanks for watching.